unlike hailstone that forms by condensation of water vapor in a cloud, spirals of glass, metal, and organic-like material formed by condensation from incandescent gases resulting from the nuclear blast.
There came hail and fire mixed with blood, and they were hurled to the earth, and a third of the earth was burned up, and a third of the trees were burned up, and all green grass was burned up.
In John's vision, as 1/3 of the world is burnt up, he sees hail and fire mixed with blood falling to the earth. As we read, a unique form of hail is made as debris is sucked into the fireball. Of course, this fallout would also include the remains of millions of people. He also wrote that all the green grass would be burnt up, not merely a third. This sounds peculiar until the effects of a global nuclear war are taken into consideration. The Aramaic text reads, "All green plants of the earth burn." Nuclear weapons inject nitrogen oxide into the higher regions of the stratosphere globally. This depletes the ozone layer, causing an increase in UV radiation. This radiation would cause direct and indirect damage among the bacteria, insects, plants, and other links in the ecosystems. This increase in nitrogen oxide would also increase ground level ozone. Ground level ozone damages plants by entering leaf openings and oxidizing, burning plant tissue. Although a nuclear war causes this increase in UV radiation, the smoke and soot from the fires will begin to shield the earth after about 2 weeks.
Something like a great mountain burning with fire was thrown into the sea, and a third of the sea became blood. A third of the living creatures in the sea died, and a third of the ships were destroyed. A great star dubbed Bitterness, falling like a burning torch from the sky, descended on a third of the rivers and water supplies. Because 33% of the waters became bitter, many human beings died from the caustic waters. A third of the sun and a third of the moon and a third of the stars were struck, so that a third of them would be darkened, and the day would not shine for a third of it, and the night in the same way.
John lists the effects of a nuclear war in perfect order. Studies indicate smoke from a nuclear exchange between Russia and the US would initially cover the northern hemisphere, 1/3 of the world as John predicted. After this, it would spread globally. As the smoke and soot protects the earth from harmful UV radiation, it will also cause even more damage to the ozone layer. Scientists estimate in about 5 years, the ozone layer will be depleted by up to 75%. Computer models estimate in about 6 to 10 years, the soot will begin to be cleared from the stratosphere. When this happens, the UV radiation will no longer be blocked. One study estimates a 20% increase in UV radiation in 7 years, with several serious harmful effects of increased UVB, including sunburn, photoaging, skin cancer, and cataracts. These computer models exactly match the timing of the book of Revelation. Almost 7 years after fire destroys 1/3 of the world, we read, "The sun was allowed to scorch people with fire. They were scorched by the fierce heat." Are all of these things merely coincidence, or did a man in the 1st century really have a vision of the future? If you believe John wrote all of these things by chance, consider this next prophecy.
Behold, the day of the Lord is coming, and your spoil will be divided in your midst. For I shall gather all the nations to Jerusalem for battle. Half the city will go into exile, but the rest of the people will not be ejected from the city.
If you don't believe Bible prophecy is real, consider these 4 undeniable facts of history. It is a fact that 2,400 years ago, the prophet Zechariah predicted that all nations would divide the city of Jerusalem. Archaeologists have found copies of Zechariah at least 2,000 years old. It is also a historical fact that Jerusalem was never divided until the United Nations divided the city in 1947. 20 years later, Israel took the entire city as a spoil of the 6-Day War. Since that time, the UN has passed several resolutions that the city be divided again, East Jerusalem for the capital of a Palestinian state. Except for the past 50 years, the division of Jerusalem was never an issue. And according to Bible prophecy, about 3.5 years after 1/3 of the world is destroyed by fire, a multinational army will divide the city again. A routine scientific experiment in Norway led Russia to prepare to launch a nuclear attack on the United States. Coincidence, confusion, and nuclear weapons on hair-trigger alert can be a deadly mix. Things could be much more dangerous if tensions between the superpowers were high. Ancient Edom existed near the Israeli border in modern-day Jordan. According to several prophecies, total destruction is coming on this region. This destruction also matches the effects of a nuclear strike flawlessly. As Edom is destroyed, the sky will be rolled together as a scroll. This can easily be how an ancient man would describe a mushroom cloud. As this happens, all of Edom's streams will be turned into pitch or tar, which means all water would be vaporized. The soil of Edom will be turned into sulfur, and nuclear weapons spread sulfur in the fallout. As this happens, the land will become a burning pitch. The troops will become stubble as the mountains are set on fire. Of course, the heat of nuclear weapons would turn these armies into dust. At the same time, there would be a fierce wind as strong as a hurricane. This is a perfect description of a nuclear blast wave. All animals in the region would be killed at the same time, the hills flowing with their blood. And as Zechariah, Isaiah predicted that there would be a dispute over Jerusalem when all of these things happen. And as we have learned, there is a dispute right now over the division of the city. Recently, the United Nations has demanded Israel give up nuclear weapons. Israel has stated plainly that if they do have them, they would use them if threatened with their existence. Recent events in another disputed territory, the West Bank, a region once called Judah and Samaria, could also trigger this war. Zechariah predicted that at the same time all nations divide Jerusalem, they will also besiege Judah. Is it merely coincidence that the same two regions are in dispute today? The United Nations has demanded Israel withdraw from this region, but instead Israel expands settlements. Recent conflicts in this region are causing this issue to boil over. The region once called Assyria will unite with Jordan in this battle. Assyria existed in present-day Iraq, but the Assyrian Empire once occupied the entire country. Right now, both Jordan and Iraq are extremely concerned about the situation in the West Bank and Jerusalem. The leaders of both countries have met with President Biden about this issue, and the Bible predicts these two areas will align themselves against Israel. We are in a more serious situation than the Cuban Missile Crisis, and almost no one is paying attention.